Thank you, Martin. I promise that I won't pick on anyone sitting in the front. So if you're standing in the back, you can please come forward. No volunteers required to do the catwalk. What I want to do is briefly talk about my observations about the water industry. And when we talk about the industry, the first thing is, well, what is the water industry? Okay, so I would have said, well, I'm going to talk about the water utilities, but in New Zealand we don't have that many water utilities. So basically what I'm going to be talking about is organizations that supply water and wastewater. But I'm going to make it easy for myself, and so that I don't offend anyone, I'll mostly talk about water care. And that way I won't offend anyone, even though the intention is that I do provoke some conversation. So the first and the most important issue that I believe that we are facing and have faced for a very long time, and we're not actually doing much about, is trust. So the water industry, when you talk about water, life-giving, essential, you speak to people in the third world who don't have the water or don't have the quality of water, they don't have the volumes of water where they spend, especially the young girls and the women, they spend most of their time collecting water. They value water. And I would have chosen the word utility because the true term means when something is valued. So if you're in a desert and someone offered you a burger or a glass of water, you will take the water because it is truly the utility at that point in time. So for some reason, as we get urbanized and more urbanized, the value of that very essential thing, water, becomes less and less in the minds of the communities. It gets taken for granted. And my view is that the only people to be blamed for that, not that I'm in the blame game, but if I turn that, the people who are responsible for making sure it doesn't happen and doesn't continue to happen is us. So if you follow on from Paul's keynote speech yesterday, the legacy, well, the most important legacy that we can leave behind, all of us, is to grow that trust in water. So what am I talking about when I say trust? Okay, so most of us who are working for water suppliers, water care or council, how much do you think that the community and our ratepayers and our customers trust us? Do they trust the water we supply? Do they trust the service we provide? Do they trust us for how we use their money? Do they trust us for how we look after the environment, where we take the water and where we discharge the effluent? What is the level of trust? What would you think it is? Well, I didn't know, so we asked our customers, right? So in water care, we asked a group of customers, not all of them, but a group of them, whether they agreed or strongly agreed or disagreed or strongly disagreed, and then of course there's always the neutral fence sitters, people who sit on the fence. And just over 40% of those who we surveyed agreed or strongly agreed that they trusted water care. Now that's not a good figure. Now the vast majority did not disagree, they sat on the fence. And we cannot have our communities sitting on the fence. It should be like that. Do you trust the water you drink? Yes. Do you trust the people who supply you the water? Yes. Well, that's the vision. That's where we want to be. So we've got some challenges. I'll talk about water care, as I said. The first challenge is an external factor that we are owned by Auckland Council. And because Auckland Council may have a low perception about how it uses the ratepayers' money, and all monopolies, councils and ourselves, will always suffer from that. Because when there's choice, people can't complain. If you want to complain about your banking, well, change your bank. When you don't have choice, you complain, right? So the first challenge about the fact that we are owned by council, well, that is not going to change. And so we need to make sure that the perception, the public perception about everything that council does is high. So it is in my interest to make sure that the ratepayers of Auckland think highly of Auckland Council. It doesn't pay for me to say, oh, we are different, we are WaterCare, because for our customers, we're the same. All the campaigns that we will put out there about how we are a separate company but owned by council is not going to work. And that effort is wasted. The second point is that whatever happens anywhere in the world now, and especially in New Zealand, which is adverse to the trust element as it goes for water, is going to have an impact on us. So if people get sick drinking tap water, then the people in Auckland lose confidence about the water that they get from the tap. You get that, right? It's simple. And so the challenge for me, and the challenge that I put to you, is that we need to build that trust and that confidence. So what are we doing at WaterCare in terms of trust? So I have 4 strategic priorities that we're working on, and it is driven to achieve our vision. So we changed our vision, and our vision now is to be trusted by communities for exceptional performance every day. It could be anyone's vision, because it doesn't talk about water, it doesn't talk about Auckland, it doesn't talk about price. It just says we want communities, not even customers, communities to trust us for exceptional performance every day. And vision is supposed to have stretch, okay? And there is a lot of stretch in the trust element itself, because I've just found out only about 43% of our customers agree or strongly agree that they trust WaterCare. And that number, by the way, has doubled since we took the survey in 2013. So we've done well over the last 3 years. But it gets difficult, right? That curve is not a linear curve. The second stretch is in exceptional performance. It's not easy to provide exceptional performance. And the third stretch, of course, is in every day. So yes, we do provide exceptional services, but not everywhere and not every day. But that's the vision. That's where we want to be. So the most important aspect is to engage with our customers, to engage with the communities. So the most important theme for us, out of those 4 strategic priorities, is our engagement with our customers. And this afternoon, there's a workshop. Those of you who are interested, you can attend the workshop. There's some WaterCare staff who will talk to you about why monopolies need to be customer-centric. And it's a very important question, because one of my directors put that question to me when I told them that we're going to be extremely customer-centric. And he said, well, why would we do that? Because customers have no choice. And the answer is, that's exactly why we're going to do it. Because the trust is being lost. So a recent survey done in New Zealand, and some of you may be aware of this, asked the question, what is the one service that you could do without for the whole day? What is the one service that you couldn't do without for the whole day? And what do you think the answer was? You just have to think about kids. If you've got kids, you think about what the answer would be, and the answer was Wi-Fi, internet, right? And that is because, in my view, very few customers of ours, well, definitely in Auckland, have had a day without water, right? We're providing such a great service, they don't know what it means to be without water for a whole day. They know what it means to have no internet for a day, and they're frustrated. But the whole process is counterintuitive, if you think about it. The better the service we provide, the cheaper the service we provide, the more they turn around and say we're not doing a great job, right? So which of all the utilities, which utility sector pays the least to its staff? It's the water. If you want to make money, go join the electricity, or Vodafone, or Spark, right? Which utility provides the best service? Well, I would like to say it's water, right? And that is because the people who are attracted to, and the people who, even if they don't want to, who join the water industry, stay there. Why? Because we know what the purpose is. We believe in it. And unfortunately, there lies the first problem. We are so committed to it, so ingrained in it, that we forget to market what it is that we're doing. We think that all the good work that we are doing by itself will be how we'll be judged. The world is changing. If we were in that third world community where the people had to go and collect the water from the stream 4 kilometers away, they will value you. They will treat you like God. But in an urban environment, that does not work. So, we need to get our communities and our customers to understand the service we're providing. So if you were all very educated professionals in Auckland, and some of you are, because you are from Auckland, and I put the question to you, how much do you think you pay for 1 litre of water in Auckland on tap? And I've asked this question of people, bankers and others. And what do you think the answer is? Someone would say $1, and then someone says something else. No one says that it's less than 1 cent, right? And so I told the mayor, our new mayor who starts in November, Phil, that if he drank those 8 cups, the 2 litres of water, 2 big glasses in the morning, and 1 before each meal and 1 before going to bed, as suggested by Ed, every day, from tap, and unfortunately our new mayor does not get water care services because he lives in Clevedon. I've just had a chairman who finishes this month, and he didn't get water care services either. And my new chairman coming in won't be getting water care services either. Anyway, but I said to Phil, Phil, if you drink water from the tap every day, 2 litres, for the whole 365 days, how much do you think that costs you? Well, he didn't know. And because he's the mayor, these questions are hypothetical and he doesn't have to answer them. But the answer is $1. Well, in Auckland it is $1. Now, if some would argue, well, you also charge for wastewater based on the volume of water that goes in, okay, $3. So if you drank the water and then you relieved yourself at home, okay, $3. $3 to get your 8 A-graded water supplied on tap every day for the whole year. And people would go and buy a 500 milliliter of whatever brand of bottled water for $3, one off. Right? So I know if I asked you, well, how much do you pay for a kilowatt hour of energy, you wouldn't know that. I don't know that either. And so trying to get that bit of information to the customer isn't the point. The point is our customers don't know the price of what it is that we supply, let alone the value of it. So the big issue for us is how are we going to engage with our customers? Because the vast majority of them, the same group that we surveyed, we said, do you think our prices are fair? And I can tell you, most of them didn't even know what the price was. But when you get a survey, they give you an answer. And 9% of them said yes. Well, 9% agreed strongly or agreed. The vast majority of them were neutral or disagreed. And that itself shows me we have a problem. Because most of them think it should be free. Okay? And why should it be free? Because it was always free. And water, of course, is free. And what we charge people, as you all know, is for collecting it, treating it, storing it, transporting it. Water in New Zealand is free, right? But someone has to pay for that. And again, who's to be blamed? We are. Why? Because we've never created the transparency that customers are actually paying for that service. Because when they get their rate, they don't know what they're paying for, which is why they're not happy with councils. Because they don't know what they're paying for, and the rates keep going up. In fact, council services to most ratepayers is the best value service that they receive. If you analyze all the services that ratepayers receive from councils, and you try to get that to the private sector, well, people would have to pay far more than what they're paying. Now, I'm not saying the private sector is not efficient. I'm just saying certain things have remained in council mandate, within the council's mandate for that purpose. So, how long do I have, mate? Oh, good, I've got time. So, the first issue is about engaging with our customers. The question is, who are our customers? So 12 months ago, we would have said, we have two types of customers. We have mum and dads, and we have industry. Okay. Now, if you speak to WaterCare staff, they will tell you that we've got lots of customers. So traditionally, we would have said customers are people who pay us directly, because that's the logical definition. Now we would say the consumers who receive the water from us, who are tenants, and over 45% of people in Auckland are tenants, they indirectly pay. But when they ring us up and say, I've got a problem with my water pressure, or I've got a sewer overflow in my backyard, we don't ask them, are you the bill payer? You know, if you ring one of the telecommunication companies, the first thing will be, are you the person on the invoice? If you're not, then we don't talk to you. Well, we don't do that. We say, okay, we'll come and fix your problem. So consumers are our customers. Developers are our customers. Their agents, their surveyors, their engineers are our customers. Lawyers are our customers. So if a lawyer interacts with WaterCare because a property is being sold and he or she wants the final meter reading, well, we have to treat that lawyer as if that lawyer is speaking for the customer who is and the customer who will be. It seems logical, but that's not what we were doing. Chances are, that's not what you are doing either if you are working for one of the water councils or utilities, because that connection isn't there. And therefore, those people complain about us, those people complain about poor service, and then we get that brand that we don't want. So we've changed the definition of who our customers are. And then we've said, how do we interact with them? What are their pain points? You have to ask them. We have to be an inclusive organization. You have to engage. Well, we haven't done that in the past. We've come from an environment where we tell people rather than we ask people. And that's because we knew better. And we did. But the world is changing. They Google, they find things, they find pollutants in the water and the receiving water. The Waikato River's got this and that. And so they are concerned. They don't trust. And so we need to engage, and then we need to educate. We can't change them all, and we won't, but at least we are working towards that. So to have exceptional customer service, you need to have exceptional staff. And so we had to change the way we treat our staff as well. So the number one change is that we used to have this belief that staff are lucky that they have a job with us. Customers are lucky that they get the water supply from us. Consultants are lucky that we give them the jobs. Contractors are lucky that we give them the jobs. The reality is we are lucky that staff want to work for us. We are lucky that consultants want to work for us. We are lucky that contractors want to work for us. And if we turn the whole concept around and say it's a two-way thing, we want to tell customers, but we also want to hear customers. We want to have an inquiring mind. We don't have all the solutions. We want to be on the learning curve. We don't want to be at that point where we say, oh, we know it all now, because that's disaster. Right? So there's a huge cultural change required. I'm giving you the example of WaterCare, so don't get carried away. I'm not just talking about WaterCare. I'm talking about the whole industry, right? So there's a cultural change required as to how we engage with each other. We need to collaborate more. We don't have to do the traditional Kiwi thing that we will reinvent everything from zero base. We don't have to stick to the concept that we are different. Yeah, what we do in Auckland is different from what they do in Wellington because we are Auckland. There's much more in common than there is a difference. And we should grasp the bits that are common so that we, as a very small country, we are very small. We, as a very small country, can get more out of the investments that we are making. Investments in time, investments in money. We are all trying to do everything ourselves. A decade ago, a very large IT service provider won a contract at Manukau, and Manukau won an award for that, and I think these companies used to give an award to any company that signed a big contract. So I was speaking to the guy who turned up to give the award, and he said New Zealand is a very lucrative market for IT businesses. And I said, why is that? He said, well, if we supplied a system in the US, you know, that one system would serve millions of people. But in New Zealand, we supply that system to a small community serving 50,000 people, then another one serving 400,000 people. And the reason is, we don't get our act together to say, as a country, why can't we just have one system? As a country, why can't we just have one registration system for dogs? Okay, the customer would like that, because if the customer moved from Wellington to Auckland, the dog is still registered, right? Just the location has changed. But I can tell you that every council has got its own dog registration system. Right? And if you wanted a user-pay system for dog registration, the registration would cost you $4,000 plus, and no dog owner would register their dogs. Right? So, that's the first thing. The second challenge, which flows on from that, is we are extremely inefficient as a business. So, yes, we are more efficient than most other businesses, but we can be even more efficient. So our internal processes need to be totally revamped. We have process for the sake of a process. So the starting point in water care right now, and we're just on that journey, is if we don't have to be involved, we shouldn't be involved. If the touch points in the process are multiple, we have to question ourselves, why do so many people in this organization have to touch that customer so many times? Why can't it be a one-point contact? Why do customers ring us more than once about the same problem? So I'm proud to say that the number of complaints that we're receiving has halved in the recent years. But we failed one of our metrics that our shareholder has with us, and that is that we will respond within 10 days to all our complaints, right? And it's extremely difficult. So when I say respond, I'm not talking about sending a response saying, I received your letter, you know, and we'll get back to you. I mean resolve. So that's our target. If a customer has a problem, we will resolve it within 10 working days. And it's very difficult to do that sometimes. So we didn't meet that target. It took us 11 or 12 days on average. But the more important metric is that the number of complaints have halved. And the reason the complaints have halved is because we are trying to make sure customers don't call us again. First-time resolution, right? So our first-time resolution has gone up to 88% or something. The other thing we did is we got rid of our call center. We don't have a call center. We have staff who answer the phones, but the surveys that we've done with our customers have said to us they want to speak to someone who is knowledgeable about what they want to talk to the person about. They do not want someone who's doing a Q&A from the computer. Okay? They want to have a conversation. So if someone rings and wants to talk about the bill, who are the best people to talk to them about the bills? The people in the billing team. If someone who wants to ring and say, look, my water meter's not working or my pressure's not right, it's a fault, who are the best people to talk to them? The people who know what a water meter looks like. So we have got rid of our call center and we've just put people back into the teams where they work with and understand and are specialists in those areas. So business processes for us is systems, staff, interactions with our suppliers, contractors, and we spend a lot of money on our capital projects, $400 to $500 million a year for the next 10 years. So we surveyed, interviewed our consultants and contractors, and the number one thing that came back was, it is costing a lot of money bidding for work. And who do you think pays for that? Who do you think pays for the inefficiencies of the time and effort that consultants have to go through when they bid for work? So if we are like our customers, where we think water is free, the answer would be the consultants pay for it. But if you dig deep, we pay for it. It's a closed world, right? So if consulting firms are not making money, their charges go up, well, next time around, we're paying for it. So what we're doing is, again, we're engaging with our suppliers and saying, how can we reduce the cost of bidding? How can we reduce the cost to you? And what is it that we are doing? Because I can tell you that we have been an arrogant client, WaterCare. And it's not unique to WaterCare, because again, I'm just giving you an example, right? I'm not going to say whether you are or not, but you know yourself whether you are or you're not. And all large organizations at some point will say they were an arrogant client, because you get to a point where you believe that you are the master and the others are subservient. I got another 10 minutes? Oh, good, right. So the next area is all about removing the inefficiencies. Our business is all about getting rid of waste, right? So when we talk about wise, efficient use of water, we don't talk about water conservation. In fact, water conservation doesn't appear anywhere in WaterCare vocab anymore, because the surveys we've done with our customers have said, Auckland gets lots of rain. Why would we conserve water? But if we said to them, we shouldn't waste water, Kiwis love that. Yeah, we don't waste, right? So, okay, we won't waste water. We shouldn't waste water as a company. We shouldn't waste money. We shouldn't waste energy. So not wasting is something that we all can relate to. The third point is all about money and funding, because our challenges are around aging infrastructure, growth, affordability, lack of resources, lack of water resources, technological advances. The customer will be the disruption for the water industry. So you talk about other businesses that worried about what the disruption will be. Well, my view is the disruption for us is going to come from our customers. Why? Because they're getting exposed to all sorts of things from different providers. They can do things on their phone. If they can't do that with us, they'll demand it. If we are not able to do that, someone else will do it. And there again, we will lose more of the trust. We will lose more of that confidence. So if we want to be an organization that has the funding, and we have constantly said, sometimes to the dismay of our shareholder, the Auckland Council, that we do not have a funding problem. And WaterCare does not have a funding problem because we are self-funding, right? And here is the digression that I'm going to make, because I think this applies a lot more to the rest of the industry, applies to us too, and that is about leadership. So one of the challenges we've all got is that we are looking for talent. Everyone's looking for talent, right? Who among you here, because you're used to putting your hands up and standing up, so I'm sure I can ask one question where you can put your hand up. Who among you here feel that you are not talented? Who's not talented here? And yet we are always looking for talented people. Well, what we mean is we are looking for the right people for what we want done, There's no shortage of talent. There's a shortage of alignment between what the organization thinks they want and what is available out there. And it's not necessarily true that the organization has got it wrong, right, because we get it wrong a number of times, right? So the challenge for us as an industry is, where's the money, right? And you, as water professionals, as water leaders, passionate as you are, it is your job. This is the bit where I'm going to flip it to you, right? It's your job to be the advocate for your customer. It's your job, if you're in a council, to stand up and say to the councillors, this is not acceptable. It is your job to say that if someone gets sick drinking tap water, that's the worst thing that can happen on my watch. If people got sick drinking water in Auckland, I will lose my job. If I don't lose my job, I will resign. I do not deserve to be leading a water industry, a water company, the whole purpose of which is to make sure people get safe drinking water if they get sick. Which bit is difficult to understand? So courage is what's required. Stand up, say it. That problem is not your problem. The reason why councillors are elected, and I respect all the geniuses of all the politicians because the public elect them. But the problem is not yours. Don't balance the pros and cons and then say, okay, yeah, your job is to be the advocate for the customer because they're not the informed ones. You're the informed ones. My own councillors at Auckland, until the incident recently, had never asked me whether I could, what assurance they could have that we will never have an incident in Auckland. But immediately after that incident, that was the first question. Can you give me assurances that it will not happen here? And I could, hand on heart, give them the assurance that it will not happen. If I couldn't give them the assurance, why am I employed? Why is anyone employed? This isn't a function where you get a job because there's a need to have jobs. There's a responsibility. And then if you're a member of an organization like IPANS or other professional bodies, you have an ethical and a moral duty to stand up and say, this is what needs to be done. Now, if they ignore what you say, well, that's what they've been elected to do. Your job is to give the right information. So that's my challenge in terms of leadership, a digression, because that's where you get the funding. You will not get the funding. The squeaky wheels get the funding. Everywhere. You have to create the squeaky wheels. You have to create the priority. That's our role. If people can spend, the average household in Auckland today spends more on phones and mobile phones and Wi-Fi than they do on water and wastewater put together. Which of the two is more important? Right? So why would we be talking about reducing our prices more? Because that's what happens. What are you going to do to reduce your price? Why are we talking about reducing prices? We should be talking about increasing services. If the public know, if your ratepayers, if the customers know what you are doing, they are willing to pay for it. Of course, if you're not doing it well, they will not be willing to pay for it. So if you end up spending millions of dollars upgrading a wastewater treatment plant that could have been done for far less, well, they have the right to challenge and question that. And finally, the final point is about sustainability. So our business is about sustainability. Our business is about water. We don't have to create unnatural, sustainable objectives because we're in it. That's what we do. And so what we've got to do is go beyond just the demand management. We have to think about true sustainable initiatives that we can be involved in. So the observation the world over is, for example, that wastewater treatment plants actually are not wastewater treatment plants. They could very easily be waste recovery plants. Right? So we've said that by 2025, our 2 largest wastewater treatment plants will be generating all the electricity that it needs to run its business. Okay. I've said that we will reduce our energy demand overall by 8 gigawatts over the next 2 years, I think. Rosalind's going to speak this afternoon if you want to know more, 4 o'clock. And we are going to help the government, because the government has made this big commitment about reducing carbon, right? Now, we're not an industrial country. Okay, and we have renewable energy. So where do you think all these savings will come from? Do you think we'll stop farming? Do you think this government will stop people farming? So we've got to find where's the next most natural opportunity. Fossil fuels, right? So electric cars, that is the next big thing. If our energy is renewable, if it's mostly hydro, and if we can run our vehicles out of renewable energy, and then we can reduce our fossil imports. That's the way, that's the most natural way that we can do that. So we need to champion those things. We need to think beyond 2016. We have to think 2026. So if you are investing in treatment plants, you've got to say, what should be in there? What can we recover? Energy, phosphorus, nitrates, waste, water into drinking water, for irrigation, for farming, whatever. Talk to other industries. Build those relationships. Collaborate. So I'm going to stop there, because I can carry on. Because in case you may have a few questions. Martin.
Right. Well, look, thanks, Raveen. Yes, we're knocking into morning tea, so if I think we've got time for a couple of questions, if there are any from the floor. Not in rabbits.
If you're too shy to ask a question in front of everyone, or if you think I might run you down, you can contact me during morning tea and I'll talk to you. How's that?
Hi, Raveen.
Sorry.
Hi, Raveen. Jamie Hicks from Water Services Association of Australia. When you talk about engaging your customers, you've obviously got, different age groups, different genders, different cultures. Are you using very different methods to engage with these people? Post, phone, social media?
The answer is yes and no. So we're not a social media kind of company yet. Okay. So I think the how is not the big issue for me, because the how is what will evolve. The key point is that my role as the CEO is to champion it. My role is to say, we need to do whatever it takes to make sure that our customers and the community understand what we're doing. So if it means engaging using social media, if it means we need different languages, if it means we do more open days, whatever it may mean, and what I'm really saying is, I don't have all the answers. What I'm doing is I'm freeing up my staff and my suppliers to come up with the ideas. And David Moore would have spoken to you about the Hanua No. 4 project that has been done with John Holland Fulton Hogan. And we did lots of new things, and we learned lots of things, and we made a few mistakes, and we'll learn from those. So my approach is probe, adapt, rather than we're going to do A, B, C, D, which is what we're doing. I mean, there's another subject for another day, but I believe that the world is more complex now, and the traditional sort of linear thinking is another danger we have. So with complexity, the solutions are not linear. And the way that you deal with complexity is you engage, you try, you fail, you experiment, you build.
Brent.
Thanks, Raveen, and I on behalf of everyone here, we kind of accept your challenge to the wider New Zealand context. But look, you mentioned early on in your talk that effectively your customers take water for granted, and probably because they haven't ever suffered the loss of it or had it taken away from them. Yet 5.5 years ago, we had a significant incident, which many of us have been involved in to some degree after that, in Christchurch. You know, huge loss of service and still being repaired to this day. Do you think there's anything, you know, the customers there, and I was one that experienced the joy and, well, no, the response from customers when the water was put back onto them after they'd had it, you know, not had it for several days. Do you think there's anything that the rest of New Zealand can learn out of that experience about what now Christchurch, how maybe they see the value of water, and that we should take away from that so we all don't have to go to those lengths just to learn that?
Absolutely. I mean, there's an element of goodwill that comes into play. And so what I mean by that is, if councils, Watercare, if we've been providing good service, we inherently build goodwill with our customers and ratepayers. And when things go wrong, that's when we use the goodwill. You know, we don't have to use it. The goodwill just comes into effect where people understand. And I think there has been a strong element of goodwill demonstrated in Hastings, right? So whatever Hastings District Council has been doing gave them sufficient goodwill that despite the incident, it hasn't meant that, oh, you know, Lawrence Yule hasn't been a mayor again or whatever, you know, the people haven't been fired, okay? So I think there's always elements of goodwill, but that isn't enough. And I think that's your question. So I believe that we need to proactively profile. So Watercare is right now profiling. They're profiling me in the magazines. They're putting articles in the Herald. No one wants to talk about water and wastewater. There's a supplement on infrastructure in today's Herald. How much water is in there? You know, recently, a few years ago, the government infrastructure report was released. First time it was released, there was no mention of water. People forget that water is an infrastructure. Why? They don't forget. It's not a big problem. What I'm saying is, you've got to make it a problem. The fact that it's not a problem is the problem, right? So we have to raise the profile, and we have to stand. I had a more provocative speech. This bit that I have written, I didn't talk about because I thought I was going to upset a lot of you. But one of the things I said in there is I liken our industry as a toddler in nappies. We look up to others. And in these forums in the past, I have heard things like, oh, we need a water minister, or we need CCOs like Watercare, and we need this, and we need that model, and we need this. My own view is you don't need any of that. You just need leadership. The fact that we're asking for a water minister is we're saying, we don't want to do things ourselves, so we're just going to ask someone else to do it, right? What I'm saying is be strong. If you speak up, we as an industry need to support you. Brent would support you. Oh, he's coming off. The new president will support you. She will make sure. We will support you. Right? If you feel strongly about something, speak out, and you will find the industry standing behind you. And we as an industry need to stand behind people. So that's what we've got to do. And we all came together when there was an earthquake and Christchurch was damaged. The whole industry turned up.